I have one more question, which I don't know whether you want to get into, but we're talking always about the state. But I'm interested in the interaction of the economics of the state and the economics of the nation.
Right.
And as you know, the nation also has problems. The federal government also has problems. And how that interacts with what's happening to all the states, not just the state of Illinois.
No, I think that probably the biggest and most critical issue in the last 3 decades, there has been a devolution of responsibility from federal to state government without the fiscal capability to go along with it. So if you look at our budget 20, 30 years ago, higher education expenditure in the state was twice the expenditure on Medicaid. Now Medicaid is 3 times the expenditure on higher education. And the growth rate for Medicaid expenditures are doing nothing but growing. And these are really serious problems. And they're going to get worse because as we look out over the next 20 years, by 2030, 20% of our population will be over 65. And in countries like Japan, where similar processes are happening, absent immigration, which is not happening there, the population is declining, so each person in the labor force now is supporting 5 people who are either too young to be in the labor force or retired. We're about 1 to 2.5, but by 2030 it'll be 1 to 3.3. So the looming implication of these things is going to become more complicated. And I think we need to understand that my colleagues are going to put a little piece on the website. The structural deficit in our state is being exacerbated by demographic changes, the economic changes. And the economic changes are essentially being driven by the whole nation's changing competitive position between the rest of the world. But I think here, I'm going to say something optimistic, that the growth of China is not likely to continue indefinitely, in large part because their wage rates are going up at about 10 to 12% a year. And a number of companies that have moved part of their value chains to China are really wondering whether that was such a smart move. So if we can invest in our human capital to make our employees more productive, we can continue to invest in our infrastructure so that intra-regional movement of goods, services, and people continues to be efficient. We may end up actually recovering part of that. So there might be a little bit of room for optimism there. But I think that the more general part of your point is, yes, it would be very fair to say that we have limited capabilities of enacting radical policies in a state. We don't have our own money supply. Well, we have a creative way of accounting, and that is we just don't pay bills. We have limited ability to change a lot of these mandates because they're federal mandates, not state mandates. And thirdly, I think we need to understand that we're very much captive to demands for our goods and services which come from other parts of the U.S. And the degree to which we can broaden that portfolio is probably very limited. And so, yes, the national economy has a dramatic influence on our state.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you, Jeffrey Hewings, for leading our discussion.